Imagine living your whole life in one room. Same furniture, same view, same smells. Nothing ever changes. Even if someone brings you food every day and the temperature is perfect, after a while, your brain is going to beg for something, anything different. Or the brain does the opposite. It shuts down. That's the best way to explain enrichment for reptiles. Enrichment just means, oops, sorry, baby. Enrichment just means adding things into a reptile's world that let them behave like reptiles are meant to behave. It's anything that gives them a reason to explore, climb, squeeze, dig, hide, perch, hunt, taste, problem solve, or even just pay attention to something new. It isn't fancy science or expensive decorations, it's letting them be reptiles instead of furniture in a box. Some people think enrichment sounds complicated, but it's not. If you've ever tossed a cardboard tube into a snake's enclosure and watched them spend 2 hours figuring it out, or even 5 minutes, congratulations, you've already done enrichment. Reptiles might be quieter and less expressive than a dog or a bird, but their brains still react to change and novelty. When you give them something new, you light up those systems, and when you don't, everything sort of shuts down and they fall into that stand very still and wait for food autopilot. No animal is at its best when that's all it has. So what does enrichment look like in the reptile keeping world? We hear about it in zoos, but what does it look like in the reptile keeping world? It can be as simple as swapping out a hide box so it smells and feels different. It can be adding a branch, a cork round, or a pile of leaves to crawl through. It can be something they climb, something they squeeze under, or something they burrow into. You can rotate decor, rearrange the enclosure, toss in safe natural materials from outside, or offer enrichment outside the enclosure altogether. For snakes, it might be a cluttered climbing space or a tub full of dry leaves to dig through. For a lizard, it might be basking platforms or different heights or a wobbly perch that moves slightly when they climb it. For tortoises, it could be foraging tray with greens tucked into hay, so they actually have to search instead of being handed dinner like a slice of pizza. I'm a fan of tossing in paper towel rolls, empty cereal boxes, mac and cheese boxes, and Amazon boxes. Sometimes I toss in a shed from another reptile and watch them check it out. One of the best enrichment forms, and the one people forget, is feeding style. Prey hidden inside a box, dragged around a set of tongs to create, or dragged behind a set of tongs to create a scent trail, or even moved slowly around the enclosure lets animals tap into predatory instincts. They come alive when they get to use that brain nature built for survival. The big question everyone asks is, how often do I need to do enrichment? There isn't a number. Think of it as a rhythm more than a schedule. Most reptiles are able to appreciate small changes every week or two. Sometimes you just move decor around, sometimes you introduce something brand new, and sometimes you leave everything alone because a reptile that's in shed or just ate doesn't need their whole world shaken up. The more important rule is this: enrichment should be varied. Rotating a few items are better than dumping everything in all at once. Reptiles are explorers, and explorers need calm new surprises. I've heard people say, my reptile seems totally fine without enrichment. It eats, it sheds, it doesn't look stressed, so why bother? And honestly, that's fair from the outside. Reptiles are masters of hiding how they feel. They don't wag their tails like dogs or chirp like birds. They're built to conserve energy, survive quietly, and not draw attention to themselves. So a reptile can sit still for days and look perfectly content, even if it's mentally shut down. That behavior is actually confusing. Their stillness may be getting misinterpreted as calmness. But for many reptiles, it's actually the reptile equivalent of airplane mode on your phone. When an animal has nothing to do, no choices to make, nothing to explore, no change in its environment, its brain stops firing in the ways it evolved to. Neural circuits built for climbing, hunting, scent tracking, problem solving, or burrowing simply don't get used. And just like human muscles, if you don't use them, they weaken. Here's the wild thing. When you do give enrichment, even something tiny, you will see a difference. It's not the animal suddenly gained intelligence or personality, it's that those brain pathways finally get switched back on. The reptile becomes curious, alert, and engaged. You see tongue flicks, exploring, climbing, watching movement, testing new objects, behaviors that were invisible when everything stayed the same. Think of enrichment like turning the lights back on in a room that's been dim for a long time. A reptile can survive in a bare bones enclosure with no stimulation. Many will even live long lives like that. But alive isn't the same thing as experiencing the world. Without enrichment, their brain operates on the most basic survival mode: stay warm, stay hidden, and eat when food appears. With enrichment, you unlock the rest of what that brain is designed for. They aren't little statues programmed to exist quietly in a glass box. They're wild animals with instincts, senses, and curiosity that doesn't disappear just because we brought them inside. You'll notice something if you start doing enrichment constantly, or not constantly, but consistently. Your animals will show more natural behaviors. Shy snakes come out more often. Active species spend more time investigating instead of pacing. Lizards use space and elevation instead of sitting on one rock all day. And you'll learn their personalities faster because when they finally have choices, they show you which things they prefer. Enrichment also gives us something priceless: connection. It turns care from routine maintenance into a relationship. You stop just changing water bowls and throwing in food and start paying attention to how your animals move and think and react. When you spend some time trying to keep them mentally stimulated, you notice details most people miss. My own retic, my sweet Sweeney, intensely tongue flicked for over 5 minutes at the straw I drink out of my coffee cup. Yes, I use a straw. So let's move on. It was fascinating to watch. Sometimes I toss in a stick from my backyard and watch her investigate. It's so cool. So the next time someone asks why a reptile needs enrichment when they just sit there, you get to explain that they don't always sit there. They just haven't been given a reason not to just sit there. Reptiles aren't plants. They're animals with instincts, curiosity, problem-solving behaviors, and a drive to explore the world, no matter how small that world might be. If we want to be responsible keepers, we should give them a life worth exploring. Enrichment is how we do that. It doesn't make them spoiled, and it's not pointless. It makes them whole. Please subscribe, like, and comment for more. I'd love to discuss it with you. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of enrichment? What do you use?
Learn from the serpent's ways, to trust, to love, to simply stay. For in their silence we understand the beauty, the wonder, the mysteries at hand.